I'm starting with a little bit of minced shallot, about a half a cup of minced shallot. Shallot is a member of the onion family, and it has a fairly mild flavor. And so I'm putting it in a saucepan with a little bit of white wine vinegar. You want about, a quarter of a cup of white wine vinegar. And you want to cook this down just until almost all of that vinegar is evaporated. And then you want to cool this before you add it to the rest of the ingredients. So let's let that cook. You keep an eye on that while we go on to what else goes into this dish, because this is really interesting what you can do with tuna in a can. So here I have some diced up potatoes, and for this recipe you want 4 medium potatoes, about 1 3/4 pounds. So boil them in the skin and then just dice them up. And you put the potatoes in a bowl. Let them get cool, because they will be a lot easier to slice if you make them cool instead of trying to slice them when they're still hot. And here we have tuna in olive oil, and that, my friends, is very critical. So we don't want tuna in water, we want tuna in olive oil. Wonderful flavor. And we're going to add that to the potatoes along with all of the oil. We're not going to drain the oil off. Now, if you really didn't want to use the olive oil, you could use tuna packed in water instead. And now you just want to flake that up a little bit with a fork. Don't be too damaging with it, because you want to make sure that your presentation is going to look wonderful. So there is our tuna. So let me come back here and see what's happening, because we want these shallots to absorb all that wine vinegar, and that looks good. And I'm going to let this cool down now. I'm actually going to take this out and put it into just a small dish. We don't want to add that too hot. And here we have 1/3 of a cup of capers. Again, this is the seed pod of a plant that grows in the Mediterranean. It's very pungent, and we want to mince this up. So you want to give them just a coarse chop, and now we can add them to the bowl. Get every last one, because they are expensive. So now we have our capers, our tuna, our diced potatoes, some flat leaf, Italian parsley, tarragon. So now we want a quarter of a cup of each of those minced up. And if you didn't want to do this with a knife, you could use a mezzaluna, which is what the Italians love to use in their kitchen. All right, so now the herbs go in. And then we need a teaspoon of celery salt. I like that because it really brings out the flavor of this salad. And now we can add those shallots. Doesn't that look good already? And I'm going to give this a little bit of salt. You know, you need to salt as you go along. So there's a little sea salt, a little bit of pepper. And now we want to give this a gentle toss. So we want, about a quarter of a cup of olive oil. So I'm just going to eyeball this. If you want to put in less, you can, but the potatoes are going to absorb the oil. Believe it or not, this is PVC piping, and it's great for making a mold. And here's how you do it. Don't mind me if I use my hands. I simply take the mixture and press it right into the mold, just like that. Make sure you pack it well, because you don't want to be stingy, number one, and you want this to come out nicely at the end. So really pack it in well. So there's one. And actually, if you didn't have piping like this, you could use some other kind of cylindrical mold if you had it. Just cover them up and put them in the refrigerator. So these are going to go in because later on I'm having company. And let me show you how this goes together. Isn't it nice to get up early and be prepared? Here we have one, you see. And if you were doing an individual serving, what I would do is have just a nice bed of greens, you know, something like this. And then just take your mold and put it where you want it and just lift. You may have to press down a little bit to make it stand, but look at how lovely that is. You can take a few cherry tomatoes and just dress it up a little bit. And you could also give that just a little drizzle of olive oil over the top. Lunch is ready.